Sinister, haunted tales from the Appalachia deep woods. Unexplained horrors revealed. Casey had thought coming back to her father's dilapidated cabin would lead her and her daughter, Lily, to peace. But as she stood at the door, she felt the sinister pull of the forest, whispering dark secrets that crept into her bones. The very air felt charged with a strange energy, always watching, always waiting. From the moment they arrived, a chill ran down her spine, an unsettling sense that they were not alone. Shadows stretched with the sinking sun, twisting into grotesque shapes. Distorted memories clawed at her mind, the stories she'd grown up hearing, the warnings about the unseen lurking just beyond the tree. Lily giggled as she explored, but Casey's heart raced. An elderly neighbor had appeared, eyes glazed and mumbling about families that disappeared in the woods, making Casey question everything. Was this really their homecoming? Or were they stepping into a web of horrors? The comforting crackle of the fire at night rapidly turned eerie as Casey tried to calm her mind. Whispers fluttered through the trees, darting in and out like phantom birds. Lily looked up, wide-eyed. "Mommy, do you hear them?" she asked, her voice trembling. Casey's laughter was forced as she dismissed it. "Just the wind, sweetie." But late at night, as she paced the creaking floors, the whispers grew louder. Footsteps outside the cabin echoed like distant thunder. Casey pressed her ear against the wall, heart racing. The murmurs were unintelligible, yet sent ripples of terror coursing through her. Something was out there. Something watching. One afternoon, she found the rusted locket in the thicket. Its grim metallic surface was now tarnished, but the photographs with faded names revealed connections she had hoped were buried. The ghosts of her past now clawed back to the surface, revealing names that shivered down her spine. She rushed to the neighbors, seeking assistance, but their wary looks and unwelcoming silence spoke louder than words. The air thickened with suspicion. Tension clawed at Casey's throat with every passing day, but the ultimate terror struck when Lily vanished during a family gathering, her laughter swallowed by the malevolent whispers of the woods. Panic seized Casey's chest as she searched, choked with disbelief. Where could a child go so quickly? Her heart thundered furiously, each beat growing louder, matching the frantic rhythm of her racing thoughts. "Lily!" she shouted, voice hoarse and desperate. The silence answered, mocking her. The trees loomed taller, darker, blocking any chance of sunlight. Neighbors loomed like phantoms, shadows against shadows, watching her as she stumbled. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." The realization pulsed in her veins. These supposed good folks of her hometown were not what they seemed. As she plunged deeper into the trees, their embrace grew thicker. Voices twisted around her, secrets that begged to stay buried. There was something darker at play, and Casey could feel it, as if the woods were alive, breathing, anticipating her every move. "Where are you, Lily?" The echo faded, swallowed by the darkness. Each step felt heavier, shadows dancing just out of sight. The forest seemed to close in, trapping her, holding her hostage with unseen chains. Could she reclaim her daughter before the whispers turned to screams? The looming dread followed like a predator, waiting for its moment to strike. What sinister sacrifice would it demand before the truth unraveled? Would she learn too late who truly held the power in these haunted woods? Branches clawed at Casey as she fought to move deeper into the forest. The shadows thickened around her, wrapping her in a suffocating shroud. "Lily!" she screamed again, her voice cracking, a fragile plea that echoed into the dark void. Each heartbeat rang louder in her ears, drowning out the whispers that grew in frenzy around her. And then, she heard it, a giggle. It was unmistakable, the sweet sound belonging to her daughter. Relief shot through Casey, followed swiftly by dread as she felt the forest shake with an unnatural mirth. "Lily!" She stumbled toward the sound, banishing doubt as the echoes twisted into mocking laughter. They taunted her, the trees buzzing with a life of their own. branches reaching out almost to grasp her as she pushed through the undergrowth. Casey felt the air chill, piercing her skin like icicles. The trees closed in, warping the path ahead. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but a mother's love drove her forward. "I'm coming, baby." The laughter faded, replaced by a strange hush that wrapped around her. Silence was deceitful here. It felt heavy and malignant, weighed down by the burdens of the past. Her feet slipped on damp earth, sending her sprawling across the ground. She gasped as cold fingers of mud slipped into her shoes, tightening like vices that eye in the panic. Casey caught a glimpse of something glistening among the roots. A familiar locket, Lily's locket, the one she had worn since she was a baby. With trembling hands, Casey picked it up, the warmth of it oddly reassuring. But upon closer inspection, she realized it was covered in dark stains, as if it had been crushed underfoot. "Mommy, help!" The plea rang out again, clearer this time, a desperate echo against the looming shadows. Heart racing, Casey catapulted forward, eyes scanning the dense thicket. Lily. She could no longer tell if the anguish was hers or the forest itself. The whispers whispered louder, rising and falling as Casey barreled through the brush. Panic consumed her thoughts. Where could her daughter be? Had she gone too far? Suddenly, she stopped. The ground beneath her felt alive. The soil throbbed, pulsing with energy, each beat quickening her breath. Then she saw a figure darting between the trees, just a flash, a blur of blue dress. Casey's heart leaped. "Don't leave," she shouted, her voice nearly lost in the rustling leaves. "I'm right here." But the figure, Lily, seemed more ghost than girl. With each time Casey thought she was close, the child would slip away, reappearing in a different spot. It was disorienting, as if the forest was shifting, bending space and time to its will. Dread filled her throat. She turned to retrace her steps. That very moment, the forest shifted again, shadows morphing. Casey stumbled, her senses alert. An unseen presence glided behind her, tantalizingly close. It held the weight of something heavy, condemnation or warning. She couldn't tell anymore. "Lily, where are you?" There was no answer, only a chilling wind that pressed against her, pulling her toward a grove that felt ancient and cursed. The trees thrummed with an expectant energy, as if they were gathered for a dark rite. They leaned in, menacing and waiting. With every instinct tuned to survival, Casey moved forward, praying Lily had not been sacrificed to whatever nightmarish force ruled these woods. In the distance, a rustle pulled her attention. Was that her daughter's voice? Was she calling out again? Or was it just a trick of the forest? And then, from deep in the shadows, a new sound emerged, a deep, guttural growl that chilled Casey's blood. The whispers turned to shrieks, screaming through the trees. The playful laughter transformed into something twisted and mockingly sinister. "What have you brought back to us?" The wind seemed to hiss around her, icy fingers wrapping around her throat. Fear exploded inside her, and for the first time, Casey felt that the forest might not only be against her, but hungry for something far worse than mere very existence. But the question clawed at her mind: would she find Lily before whatever horror awaited claimed them both? The seriousness of the situation gripped her thoughts like a vice. One final thought pulsed through her. What exactly were they dealing with, and could they escape it? As Casey plunged deeper, the growl rose again, echoing louder, inching closer. And in that moment, she knew whatever lurked within these woods wouldn't let go so easily. Would they become victims of the darkness? Or would they rise against the ancient threat? Casey felt the pulse of the forest beneath her feet, its rhythm synced with the frantic beat of her heart. The growl lingered in the damp air, sending icy tendrils of fear wrapping around her mind. She gasped, pulling the locket closer to her chest, desperate for its familiar weight as a shield against the impending dread. "Lily." Her voice tore through the slick silence, but the response was only laughter, high-pitched and cruel. The trees swayed, as if in agreement, a symphony of rustling leaves forming a taunting chorus. Panic washed over her. The shadows thickened, swirling and dancing, drawing her deeper into their embrace. She crouched low, hoping to remain unseen, straining her ears to catch any sign of Lily. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered, but the words felt pathetic in the face of the darkness. As she caught her breath, the air around her grew heavier. The whispers returned, slithering through the trees, intertwining with her thoughts. "What have you brought to us?" they hissed, voices layered and overlapping, crashing like waves. The atmosphere crackled with malevolent intent, and Casey felt her resolve waver. There, at the edge of a glimmering moonlit glade, a flicker of movement caught her eye. It was Lily, no doubt this time. The blue dress shimmered under the pale light, beckoning like a moth to flame. "Mommy." Her daughter's voice was sweet, innocence woven into the plea, yet it dripped with an unearthly quality that made Casey's hair stand on end. Casey lunged toward the figure, each step heavy with trepidation. But as she neared, Lily seemed to dissolve into mist, swirling away, leaving only the echo of her name hanging in the air. "No!" Casey screamed, frustration fueling her. The soft glow of moonlight faded, shrouded in darkness once again. Then came the growl, low and rumbling, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very trees. Casey's heart raced, and the frozen tendrils of dread gripped her throat. She pivoted, scanning the grove for any hint of danger, adrenaline surging through her veins. The shadows parted, revealing grotesque faces etched into the bark, eyes gleaming with malice. She stumbled back, recoiling. The faces shifted, mouths moving in synchronized rhythm, chanting words in a language she could not comprehend. Her hands shook, confusion muddling her thoughts. "What do you want?" she gasped, her voice trembling. Silence thickened the air, as if the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting. Then, one of the twisted faces spoke, the voice a guttural rasp. "You should not have come here. She belongs to us now." Casey's chest tightened. Every bone in her body screamed to flee, but the knowledge that Lily was within grasping distance kept her rooted to the spot. "No, she is mine." The words ached in her throat, each syllable a defiance against the ancient evil looming large before her. The shadows twisted, swirling in a frenzy. She sensed them closing in, enveloping her in their embrace. The weight of centuries pressed against her, suffocating. "Leave her alone," Casey shouted, the desperation straining her voice. Suddenly, a sharp, chilling laugh broke the tension, vibrating through the ground beneath her. The trees shivered with delight as screams echoed from the shadows, a cacophony of anguish that chilled her bones. "You cannot protect what you do not understand." Each word sent quakes of panic through her spine. Casey's pulse thundered in her ears as she stumbled backward. The growl rose again, undeniable and primal. It circled her, a predator stalking its prey. In that moment of clarity, she realized that this wasn't an ordinary forest. It was alive, insidious, feeding off her fear, and it wanted Lily and her. Something whispered in the back of her mind. Would she be strong enough to stand against the darkness, or would it consume them both? Hope felt distant, yet the flame of a mother's love blazed furiously. Casey steeled herself, determination igniting within her. She would not lose Lily, not to this insatiable terror. And as the shadows surged forward, Casey prepared to fight, desperate to reclaim what was hers. There was no turning back. The forest was waiting to see if she would succeed, or if they would both become another lost story amongst the trees. The shadows lunged like voracious beasts, tendrils of darkness reaching for Casey as she steeled herself before the ancient evil. The air turned oppressive, thick with the fear that dripped from her skin. She grasped the locket tighter, feeling the cool metal bite into her palm, her only anchor in the void. "Lily!" she cried out, voice raw with desperation. Each syllable hung in the air, rippling through the dark, but the taunting laughter only swirled back at her, a cruel reminder of what she was fighting against. Something heavy shifted in the gloom, echoing her frantic heartbeat. Casey spun, adrenaline coiling within her like a tightly wound spring. Fragments of moonlight broke through the leaves, illuminating patches of the forest floor, and in those glimmers, she thought she saw shapes darting, fleeting figures just beyond her grasp. "Stay back," she shouted, rage and fear merging into a fierce resolve. The grotesque faces appeared once more, staring back at her with eyes like black pits craving despair. Their chanting rose, a horrifying lullaby that danced on the edge of comprehension. Join us," with every ounce of strength, she charged toward the nearest tree, smashing her palms against the bark. "Leave her alone. I want to let you take her." The power of her maternal love surged through her, wild and unyielding. The laughter faltered. If only for a moment that it was then that the darkness responded. A current rushed at her, cold and suffocating. Shadows wrapped around her limbs like snake coils, dragging her feet into the earth, roots and soil closing in on her. Panic flashed through her. No. She fought against the bind, every muscle screaming in protest, the very essence of the sinister forest clawing at her resolve. Suddenly, the forest grew quiet. The growls faded into an eerie stillness. Casey's breath echoed heavily in her ears, drowning out the questions of what horror awaited next. It felt wrong, this silence. She could almost hear the forest sharpening its teeth, waiting for her to succumb. Then, on the wind, she heard it. A soft voice, delicate and sweet, breaking through the tension. "Mommy, help me, it wasn't just a call." It was a plea, filled with that same innocent quality that drew her forward. "Lily." Casey's heart raced, the sound igniting a flame within her breast. She tore her gaze from the creeping shadows, focusing on the voice. Charging into the darkness, she ran toward the sound, past the writhing roots and whispering trees. With each step closer, the shadows writhed with anger, swirling violently in an attempt to deter her. "Stop! She's ours!" They shrieked, voices layered like a wound-up puppet show, slicing through the air. "Not if I have anything to say about it," she roared back, unyielding. The sincerity of her words doused her fears, if only for a heartbeat. She could feel the ties of fear weakening, stretching thin as she fought against the grip of despair. As she stumbled into a clearing, the moonlight washed over her, revealing a twisted altar made from gnarled branches and glowing stones. And there, she saw Lily, bound by shimmering strands of darkness that clawed at the edges of the child's blue dress. "Get away from her!" Casey shouted, her voice a beacon of determination. Light burst forth from the locket, illuminating the scene with warmth and clarity. The shadows hissed, recoiling as the glow pierced their shroud. But in the chaos, the semblance of reality began to falter. Casey's heart sank as she realized Lily's eyes were vacant. Almost like she was trapped in a dream, her expression lost. "What have they done?" Casey whispered, every fiber of her being choking on fear. The shadows thundered, closing in, their growls rising to a fever pitch. She realized in that moment the price of confronting the darkness was becoming painfully clear. "Help me, Mommy," it was a haunting refrain, growing weaker with each turn of the shadows. As the night danced with her every breath, Casey's vision blurred, caught between love and disbelief. Then, the wind howled through the trees, a deafening roar, as the forest revealed its true form, a beast hungry for surrender. "Once she's ours, she'll forget you," the voices rasped, and a soul-wrenching pain surged through Casey. Would she battle this living nightmare, or lose herself forever in the grasp of despair? The shadows lunged once again, and all hope thinned like mist in the air, as Casey fought to reclaim her daughter from the depths of darkness. And then it happened. In a blink, the locket began to tremble in her grasp, whispering promises she dared not believe. What new terror awaited her in the heart of the forest, and could that glimmer of hope be her only salvation? The locket pulsed violently in Casey's grip, its warmth radiating through her fingers, and for the briefest moment, it felt like life, a heartbeat entwined with hers. But the stillness around Lily felt like ice, suffocating any flicker of hope. A bone-deep dread settled in her stomach, twisting tighter as the shadows surged, their hunger palpable. "Lily!" Casey shouted again, but this time, her voice trembled, threaded with uncertainty. The shadows howled in response, a cacophony that echoed like 1,000 wailing ghosts. It was a sound that clawed at her sanity, sending cold chills racing down her spine. The darkness seemed to pull back slightly, as if sensing the potency of her love and fear. With renewed fury, Casey stepped forward, every inch of her body vibrated with determination. The forest had taken too much. It could not have her daughter. "Let her go?" The command rang out, bouncing off the trees like a challenge. As if summoned by her cry, a figure waded through the dark, a silhouette so twisted and grotesque that Casey's breath caught in her throat. It moved with unnatural grace, dripping shadow as it approached. The urge to flee tugged at her every nerve, but she stood her ground, fueled by desperate love. "Join us, little moth," the figure cooed, its voice slick and oily, wrapping around her like a snake. Embrace the darkness. This forest has always had room for one more. It raised a hand, revealing long fingernails like claws, each poised to shred hope from her heart. Get away from her, she screamed, a primal instinct igniting her voice. A flash of light erupted from the locket, illuminating the altar. Lily, still bound, stirred slightly, her vacant eyes flickering with recognition. Mommy? The weak sound broke through the chaos, like a ray of dawn breaking through the darkest night. Hold on, baby, Casey gasped, straining against the pull of despair. Her heart thundered as she felt the ground shift beneath her, the darkness writhing at her feet, enraged by the light. The shadows darted closer, tentacles of gloom hungry for her, touched with the chill of graveyards. More than love, little moth, the figure hissed. You will need strength. Would you dare to cross the threshold of darkness as they did? No, Casey retorted, vision narrowing as shards of fear struck like fire in her veins. My love is stronger than your lies. The locket's glow intensified, pushing back the shadows momentarily. But an unsettling grin spread across the figure's face, exposing jagged teeth that glinted under the moonlight. You think love will save you? It will lead you here, to a fate worse than death. It will consume you. Casey's heart quaked, battling the line between hope and despair. Could she draw on the depths of her strength to pull Lily from the abyss? Would she sacrifice herself to save her? The voices rose again, a symphony of anguish and laughter that echoed through the trees. Mommy, help me! The plea tugged at her soul, and Casey felt as if she was teetering on the brink of a chasm, one step away from giving in to the shadows that craved her surrender. Lily, she whispered fiercely, willing the strength of her love into the locket, into the very air around her. If love could exist in this accursed place, then perhaps it could also drive back the darkness. The pulsing light flickered like a heartbeat, and she prepared for a final surge. But just then, the shadows surged forward, clawing at her. Desperation turned to rage. The chilling laughter filled her ears, throwing her off balance. With every ounce of strength, she would grasp the light in this engulfing dark. Or would it reject her, letting the shadows win? Time hung suspended like a delicate thread, and in that moment, Casey understood her next choice would either trap them in despair or ignite a desperate fire against the approaching doom. As the shadows drew closer, their claw-tipped fingers eagerly reaching. Would she find a way to combine the light of love with fierce determination, or would they claim both her and Lily forever? The shadows lunged, wrapping around Casey like a cold vice, but she stood firm, gripping the locket as its light fought against the encroaching dark. Heart pounding like a drum, she braced herself, whispering fierce words of love into the air. No more retreating. This would be her stand. Lily, she cried again, her voice stronger this time. I'm coming for you. The shimmering light pulsed, illuminating the grotesque figure that slowly slithered closer. The dark entity seemed to mock her bravery, its laughter echoing through the night like broken glass. Such a noble mother, but can love truly defend you against the deep? Casey could feel the ground shift beneath her, a sinking sensation that clawed at her. The dead leaves rustled as if whispering their own malevolent secrets, and the trees loomed, seemingly drawn closer. She could taste the sharp bitterness of fear in the air, each breath strained and heavy. Then, just as she felt the grip of despair tightening, she focused on the bag of memories hidden within each laugh shared, every moment cradled in joy. Love wasn't just warmth. It was a weapon, and she would wield it fiercely. Lily, Casey shouted once more, focusing every ounce of her energy, every shared heartbeat, into the locket. With a fervent pulse, light burst forth, brighter than ever before. The darkness shrieked, swirling back, its form writhing in agony. The malicious figure stumbled, the jagged toothy grin momentarily vanishing, replaced by a mask of rage. You foolish woman. You cannot escape what is destined. Before she could respond, the shadows recoiled and twisted, gathering strength for a counterattack that felt like a storm gathering overhead. The wind whipped through the trees, sending branches clawing at the sky. It's not destined, it's a choice, she retorted, pushing the light forward with a primal scream. Desperation fed her courage, and in that instant, It felt as though the locket answered with a newfound intensity. Then she saw Lily, tangled but aware, her pale face flickering between hope and terror. "Mommy, hold on, sweetheart," Casey shouted, her voice laced with a fierce determination. The locket began to glow even brighter, a beacon of her love, illuminating the dark with an unyielding force. Yet the shadows raged, howling like wild beasts, a furious wind that tore at Casey's clothes and skin. She struggled, but the light pulsed in rhythm with her heart, syncing their beats, sparking a fire in her soul. As the darkness lurched forward again, a realization struck her. What if the shadows fed off her fear? What if they were nothing but the manifestation of her doubts? With that insight, she fortified her stance, letting courage swell within her, burning brighter than any darkness. "Leave us alone," Casey roared, feeling the power of her love surge. "You have no hold over us." To her surprise, the shadows hesitated, a brief flicker of doubt catching them off guard. Casey grasped the moment. With everything she had, she charged toward Lily, extending her arm. Mommy Lily's voice shattered the chaos, but it was filled with something more than dread. It was a plea, yes, but also a challenge. The shadows recoiled, shifting and swirling, as if unsure whether to pursue Casey's glowing figure or cling to the darkness that intertwined with their essence. "You cannot save her. Your love will betray you." "No," Casey cried, feeling Lily tugging at the edges of her being, a connection that transcended fear. If love could set her free, then it could bind the shadows, too. The pulse of the locket beat like a drum, a rallying cry that began illuminating the very roots of the forest, spreading light amidst the gnashing darkness. But as she turned to wrap her fingers around Lily, the shadows lunged again, forming tendrils of black that aimed directly for her heart. What would she choose in that fleeting moment? Fight to claim her light, or let darkness swallow it whole? A heart-stopping crash filled the air as something shattered in the dark, echoing with an ominous promise. The forest shimmered with a flicker of dread as Casey knew the battle was only beginning, and she'd have to delve deeper into the heart of darkness. Would she pay a terrible price to save her daughter? Would the forest unleash horrors she couldn't fathom? The shadows beckoned, urging her to take a step closer into their realm. The instant the shadows lunged, Casey's instincts kicked in. She ducked and rolled, the icy tendrils just grazing her shoulder. Fear clawed at her throat, but she couldn't let it consume her. Not now. Not when Lily was so close. "Stay back," she shouted, light radiating from the locket in fierce waves. She stumbled to her feet, heart racing, eyes locked on her daughter who was still tangled, hopelessly trapped within the mass of darkness. Lily's face was a pale moon in the black chaos. "Mommy, please. I can't hold on much longer." The urgency in her voice sent a jolt of adrenaline through Casey, propelling her forward. With a defiant howl, Casey plunged deeper into the swirling shadows. The laughter that surrounded her morphed into a sinister cackle, echoing off twisted trees that pressed in on her. Each step felt heavier, as though the ground itself sought to drag her down into the abyss. "Your love will betray you," the darkness hissed, each word dripping with malice. For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered in her mind. What if she was wrong? What if this love she wielded was not a shield but a sword that would cut deeper into her own heart? "No," she spat back, forcing the fear down, gripping the locket tighter. The glow throbbed against the shadows, pulsating like a heartbeat, and the energy surged, as if rejecting the darkness outright. But the entity was relentless. Tendrils shot out, snapping toward her, seeking to choke the light. Casey's breath came in short, sharp gasps, panic threatening to overwhelm her. She was inches away from the darkness, and yet Lily remained just out of reach, an unreachable dream wrapped in an insatiable nightmare. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, a sound that cut through the storm like a blade. It sparked something deep within Casey's fierce resolve, a roaring flame that refused to be extinguished. "I'll save you," she screamed into the night, the locket surging anew. With a wild, desperate hope, she fed her memories into the light. Lily's laughter, the warmth of her delicate hands laced with her own, the endless summer days filled with love. The shadows recoiled, the cackling giving way to a guttural snarl. "You think memories are enough?" It screeched. "They're but whispers in the wind. Instantly, a gust of wind swept through the forest, chilling Casey to her core as whispers rose, thick and fast. Each memory twisted into a haunting echo, growing louder until they drowned out the darkest taunts. Mommy! Mommy! They were lost in the storm, carried along like dry leaves in autumn. But Casey pressed forward. Closer. She could feel Lily's presence, each bit of energy pulsing like a lifeline, guiding her through the chaos. Just as Casey reached out, tendrils wrapped around her ankles, pulling her down. The coldness seeped into her, an icy terror clawing at her core. "Let me go?" she shouted, shaking her legs furiously, desperation spurring her to fight harder. "I'll take your daughter," the dark figure hissed, its shadowy head looming over Lily, who screamed and thrashed in vain. "And when she's mine, you will watch now." Casey's voice shattered through the thick air. Instinct and adrenaline fused into a singular focus as she threw the locket forward, praying it would break the entity's grim hold. The object sailed through the murk, a comet aiming for its target. Past snarling shadows, past swirling despair, everything slowed, a heartbeat suspended in time. Then, as the locket connected with the darkness, an explosion of light erupted, an expanding glow that flooded the entirety of the forest. The shadows shrieked, twisting in agony, retreating as Casey felt an overwhelming force pull her and Lily closer together. Sinking into the light, she screamed, "Hold on, Lily." But in that fleeting moment of hope, a scream echoed, one not of pain, but of unbridled laughter, the voice of the shadows morphing into something far worse. And it was then realization crashed down upon her like a wave. She would have to confront not just the darkness, but her deepest fears too. With the collapsing shadows closing in, Casey prepared for the fight of her life. Would she be strong enough to pull Lily from this nightmare? Or was she merely paving the way for even greater horrors that awaited? The blinding light surged around Casey, illuminating the darkness for a brief moment before falling back into shadow. It enveloped her in warmth, its pulse syncing with her frantic heartbeat. She darted forward, reaching into the glow, desperate to pull Lily from the clutches of horror surrounding her child. "Mommy, don't leave me." The desperation in Lily's voice sliced through Casey's resolve. The shadows writhed, squirming and flexing like a living entity. They flickered against the light, drawn to it yet repelled by its sheer force. Using everything she had, Casey pushed against the darkness, her arms outstretched. The locket burned against her skin, and she felt the memories coursing through her, Lily's laughter ringing in her ears, the tender moments of bedtime stories and shared secrets. She summoned those images, weaving them into a tapestry of light, undeterred by the darkest taunts. "Your happiness is a mirage," the entity snarled, its voice curdling the air. "You cannot hold on to it. You cannot remain unbroken." As the tendrils curled tightly around her, Casey could feel the biting cold that threatened to shatter her from within. Her breath came in ragged gasps. "I won't let you take her," she screamed. The locket flared in response, sending a wave of energy cascading outward. The darkness shrieked, yanking towards the light in wild desperation. In the chaos, Casey spotted the flicker of Lily's form, bound yet brimming with hope. Their eyes locked, a connection sparking between them, fueling Casey's resolve. But the shadows lunged, attempting to snatch Lily back into their clutches. They laughed, a cruel, taunting sound echoing across the clearing. Suddenly, the shadows twisted, forming grotesque shapes that morphed into the likenesses of Casey's greatest fears, images of failure, isolation, and heartbreak. Memories flooded her mind, her own mother's struggles, the loneliness that crept in at night, the guilt when she couldn't save her childhood friends from the grim fates that had haunted them. "No," she hissed, shaking her head. The darker memories were mere fabrications of what could happen, shadows of her thoughts longing for a grip on reality. They were not truth. They were not power. With renewed strength, Casey pushed deeper into the light. "Lily," she cried, extending her hand further. "Trust me. I won't let go." Her heart pounded, echoing as though shouting against the cacophony of shadows surrounding her. Lily's small hand reached out, trembling but filled with fierce determination. Just as the tendrils hitched around Lily's waist, Casey grabbed her wrist, pulling hard. The darkness shrieked, a sound so loud it almost drowned out Lily's own cries. "Mommy!" As the shadows tightened their grip, Casey felt a sickening stab of dread. Would she be too late? Just as the last tendril coiled around her daughter's neck, the locket flared one final time, a blinding flash of pure light shot outward, enveloping them in a protective cocoon. Time stopped. The forest held its breath. But in the heart of that blinding radiance, Casey sensed something shift. What if the light was just as dangerous as the darkness? Was she merely uncovering a greater horror, lurking just beyond the veil? With a deafening roar, the shadows exploded, but they weren't vanquished. They oozed back, pooling at the edges, circling them in a malevolent whisper, their laughter transforming into a chaotic symphony of dread. "Your journey has just begun," the darkness crooned, its voice now a seductive hiss. As Casey and Lily stood trembling in the flickering light, the shadows promised far worse things than they had faced. The true horror was only just starting to awaken. What secrets would unveil themselves next? Would Casey and Lily truly escape this nightmare, or had they only stumbled deeper into the web of horror waiting for them? The light that enveloped Casey and Lily faded just a fraction, enough for the shadows to creep closer again, their whispering taunts slithering like serpents through the air. The darkness felt thicker now, pressing against Casey's skin, suffocating her resolve. "Where do you think you're going?" The dark voice oozed with malice, resonating deep within her bones. Shadows licked at the edges of her vision, clawing for entry, feeding on her fear. "Stay back," Casey shouted, raising the locket as if it were a shield. Her hands trembled. The emblem she once considered a source of strength now felt burdensome, as if it too were caught in a battle of spirit. "Mommy, I can't breathe," Lily gasped, her small face turning pale. The tendrils twisted tighter around her, tightening their grasp with each beat of Casey's racing heart. "No." Casey lunged forward, but the ground beneath her felt as if it were melting away. She stumbled, falling forward into a softness that felt more like a trap than salvation. Her hands plummeted into a puddle of shadow, sticky and cold, pulling her deeper. Just then, a jolt of panic surged through her. She forced herself onto her feet, pulling Lily closer, but the shadows surged back, coiling around Casey's legs like relentless vines. "We need to go, Lily. Now." Lily's cries echoed, their pitch rising in the cacophony of wretched laughter that echoed all around. It felt like the whispers were forming words, a language of despair meant to entrap them. "You're too late." In the suffocating dark, Casey struggled against the pulling shadows. Memories of other mothers drenched in fear, desperate and lost, spurred a rage within her. They had faced monsters in their lives, and she would not let her child become another victim. "Lily, look at me," she urged, forcing her voice steady, though terror crawled beneath her skin. "You're stronger than this. We will fight it together. Hold my hand." Lily's eyes blinked with defiance as her small fingers intertwined with Casey's. For a moment, the connection felt like a lifeline anchoring them amidst the swirling chaos. But another shadow lunged forth, gnashing with jagged teeth, slicing their bond. The darkness roared, crashing against the cocoon of light that enveloped them. "You think strength can save you? You think love can defeat the void?" It hissed, a bone-chilling sound that resonated with every insecurity Casey had ever known. "Not my love," Casey barked, shaking her head in fierce determination. "I will not lose her." Summoning every ounce of desperation, she hurled the locket into the air. Time seemed to slow as it twirled above, glimmering like a distant star. Just as grime-covered fingers clutched at her daughter, the locket erupted with blinding brilliance. A warmth spread outward, burning through the shadows like sunlight cuts through fog. But alongside the brilliance, Casey noticed movement in the gathering twilight, shadows shifting, morphing into grotesque forms, each one a twisted reflection of her own fears. Figures she knew all too well marched from the depths. Her childhood enemies, her past failures. Casey gasped, strangling her breath. This can't be real, but it was real. Every dark silhouette etched painfully into her memory. They marched forward, unrelenting, smirking as they dragged her past atrocities from time forgotten. "Leave us alone," she cried, her heart pounding, pulse racing. Just then, amidst the chaos, Lily screamed, "Mommy, help!" Her child was swept into darkness, the shadows claiming her glad cries. Dread settled into Casey's bones like ice. Moving through the flickering light, terror gnawed at her resolve. Then, out of nowhere, an icy gasp of air sliced through the chaos. "You're not alone." Casey, a figure materialized from the shadows, one she had once loved, lost to the thread of time. "Together, we can confront this." Hope flickered for a brief moment, and then darkness spiraled closer, a reminder that sacrifice may be the only way out. But would facing the abyss lead to freedom, or to a deeper descent into horror? What choice would she make now? In this cursed dance between light and shadow, would love prove an ally, or a deception too great to bear? Casey stood in the flickering light, teetering on the brink of despair. The shadows morphed around her, a vile sea of darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Below her, the earth trembled, the whispers rising to a fevered pitch. The twisted figure loomed, its claws stretching toward her, its intention clear, to rend her hope and claim her child. "Lily," she cried, her voice raw with desperation. In the depths of the darkness, she could barely see her daughter struggling, the tendrils of shadow wrapping tighter, suffocating the spark of innocence they had fought so hard to protect. The evil entity only laughed, deep and cold, like autumn leaves crunching underfoot. "She belongs to the forest now." A rush of blood roared in Casey's ears. "No, you can't have her." It was pure instinct. Just as she felt hopelessness creeping in, a surge of power pulsed from the locket. She lifted it high, shouting into the abyss, "My love is stronger than your darkness." The light exploded forth, wrapping around her and Lily like a protective cocoon. "Mommy." Lily's voice broke through the noise, crystal clear, but each word was turned to despair as shadows snaked closer, determined to claim her. Casey felt their pull with every heartbeat, each pulse of her love illuminating the dark like a flare against night. The figure hissed, shadows spiraling around Casey like vines. Such foolish hope. Love can bend, but it can break. But in that moment, Casey refused to bend. She summoned her memories, the laughter, the late-night stories, the countless moments of joy they had shared. Each woven recollection ignited the locket's brilliance. "I'm coming for you," she screamed again, stepping forward, fueled by the ferocity of a mother's love. The light blazed intensely, waves rippling through the shadows, retreating before her resolve. "Leave my daughter alone." The shadows recoiled, the laugh of malevolence replaced with disorienting shrieks. The darker forms shifted, revealing apparitions of Casey's past, her childhood fears, her failures, but she stood firm. "You're not real," she roared at them. "You can't claim me." The light wrapped tighter, solidifying her grip on truth. "Mommy, please." Lily's voice, tiny and terrified, fueled Casey's strength. In a surge of determination, Casey lunged toward the altar, heart hammering in her chest. The shadows writhed as she drew nearer, time slowing as the locket throbbed in her grip. As she reached for Lily, a tendril lashed out, striking her side, forcing a cry of pain from her lips. But Casey pressed on, the locket a beacon, illuminating her daughter's bound form woven with darkness. "Lily," she shouted, outstretched arms trembling. Mommy. Lily's small voice was fragile, filled with terror and trust, urging Casey on. The shadows shrieked, the laughter echoing like a nightmare. "You cannot save her. She will forget you. You will both belong to the depth." "Never," Casey roared back, the pulse of love filling her senses. With a final push, she leaped, yanking Lily free from the chains that bound her. The darkness seemed to scream in fury, shadows lashing towards them like snakes. The moment Casey's fingers clasped around Lily's small wrist, the world exploded. Light burst outward, enveloping them, pushing back against the oppressive weight. The shadows shrieked and twisted, desperate. But as the luminous shield expanded, Casey felt a sharp pang in her heart. Would the light be enough? Would the ancient darkness condemn them both? Casey held tight, willing her strength into the locket, focusing on their bond, their shared memories. The warmth flowed through her, into the locket, igniting a radiant light that consumed the inner darkness. "You will not claim my daughter. We will not succumb." In that moment of clarity, she understood that true power came not just from love, but from unity and unshakable bond against the encroaching void. The shadows recoiled, a symphony of wails rising in protest, but Casey held Lily close, gripping her hand tightly. Suddenly, the cacophony shattered. The night erupted in blinding light, swallowing the darkness. Whole. The figures of doubt faded, obscured by the brilliance. The shadows melted away, defeated, and in their wake, all that remained was radiant silence. As the light dimmed, Casey and Lily found themselves standing in a clearing. The forest was untouched by the horrors they'd faced. The air felt fresh, free of that malevolent weight. She looked down, hold on Lily, who had tears of relief shining in her wide eyes. "Mommy, we did it," she whispered, her tiny frame trembling but filled with warmth. Casey knelt, gathering Lily into her arms. She breathed deeply, allowing the moment to wash over her, each heartbeat healing the wounds of their harrowing journey. "Yes, baby, we did it, but it will always be our love that saved us." They embraced tightly as the moon shone above, a witness to their victory. The weight of the past began to lift, the forest now a safe space, rather than a setting of despair. There was hope, healing in the moonlight, a promise of peace. "Let us go home, sweetheart," Casey said, feeling a warmth envelop them. As they turned back toward the path home, the woods behind them echoed with deep, ancient whispers that now felt like a distant memory, lingering but no longer threatening, wrapping them in stories fought through love and bravery. In that moment, Casey knew they would never go back to the shadows. As she and Lily stepped over the threshold into a new dawn, she vowed to never forget the darkness they faced, but now, it was just a chapter, not their prison. Now, if you enjoyed this tale and crave more spine-tingling stories, this is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive adventure. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help fellow story lovers find this content. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how this tale ended. Your thoughts matter, and we're all ears. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Spread the thrill. Trust me, they'll thank you.